may be getting a secondary notch here. Can we rotate back, Rick, 2 scans and then come forward, just so I can get a sense of what we're looking at? Okay, here's the primary hook. There is a notch here too. Okay, let's run it forward now into the current. There was the hail that was falling in the Seymour area. All right, now I want to go over to the velocity here and take a look at what we have that's ongoing right now. So this was the initial area of rotation that has weakened. Rick, that is definitely a secondary of rotation that's developed south of this. What do you have for roads on this one? I-65 right here, this crossed over I-65, about 5 miles south of Seymour, and that area of rotation. Rick, call out those streets you're looking at heading towards Lovett.
Yeah, it's County Road 750 West, County Road 700.
Okay.
You're looking at, yeah, Road 500, and a new scan just came in. That does show that we still have that new area of rotation that's definitely taking over.
And let's go. And so what we've seen now is an occlusion, a weakening. So let me explain what happens with these storms. The storms that produce the violent tornadoes, what they're going to do is they're going to stay rotating in the same area for a long time. Sometimes when the storm's in its formative stage, it can generate an updraft base that gets pulled into the rain. Rick, I assume here when we look at reflectivity, we've got rain here. And then what would happen is that area of rotation gets pulled into the rain. It can generate a new updraft base or a new area of rotation to the south. Why? Because it needs the warm air to survive. The warm air is the fuel. It is the lifeline of the thunderstorm. And you can see it develop that rotation south. Rick, I assume we're looking from Louisville here?
Yes.
Outbounds 55, 60 here?
We got 46 on that side.
Okay, other side here, we're looking...
About 22.
Okay, so we've got about 60 to 70 miles an hour of rotation that we call gate to gate. What that means, it is right next to each other. Rick, are we looking at underneath? Yeah, so in terms of debris, inconclusive. Inconclusive, but there are certainly some things that are raising at least an eyebrow. This is a storm that we need to watch very, very closely. If you're in Lovett, Indiana right now, take your tornado safety precautions. I need you downstairs. I need you underneath something. I need you in the center part of your house, and I need you to keep away from windows. Rick, we're definitely getting where it's embedded in Lovett, embedded within the storm, so we may not be able to view anything. Heading towards Walnut Ridge, can we do a track on that rotation area as it's moving to the east-northeast?
You got it.
Matthew, if you could, let's continue to make sure that our Seymour camera is aimed on the updraft base on this storm to see if we're going to be able to view anything on it. So we're going to track that area of rotation, and just so you know, we've got Rick and Matthew in here as well. We're working as a group to stay on top of this. Heading right over the Lovett area, it's going to go north of Walnut Ridge by about 3 miles in 7 minutes, and it's going to be going towards the Grayford area around 10 minutes from now. This is the only storm that is tornado warned as we stand right now. We're going to take a look at this storm from our Seymour camera one more time. I want to get a view and get a sense of what we've got in there. So this is looking, Matthew, direction that we're looking right now?
East-southeast.
Okay, so we're looking east-southeast out of the Seymour area. You can see on the right side there what appears the updraft base, and you can very clearly see what looks white. The white there, Rick, you can very clearly note that that is the hail shaft in that storm, and it definitely is showing hail in there.
And I mean, we had easily some quarters out there. The warning itself does include the possibility for some gusts to 60 and, again, quarter-size hail. So I do believe that we definitely verify that warning without a doubt in terms of the hail. And the thing about some of this rotation is that it is definitely wrapped in some rain.
Yeah.
So for those of you who are fascinated, you want to go outside and look, that's something I would strongly advise that you do not do, because you're not going to be able to see anything. So just watch from inside the safety of your house, and we can show you the camera, so that way you get the view that you want without putting yourself in danger.
And I know that Metro Louisville is curious what's going on right now, so it is worth noting. Let me show you what we've got ongoing here in Metro Louisville. So this is the cluster that is not severe right now heading into Metro Louisville. What I can tell you is the atmosphere is still highly volatile. And this is probably one of the hardest things for us to communicate in what I do. When we have more isolated severe like this, it's challenging to communicate that you can see significant severe in some areas, but not everybody's going to see that. This does not have hail on it right now, but we're watching it very, very closely. It is a very volatile atmosphere. The storm right now is moving into Metro Louisville, is approaching 65 right now, heading down Okolona. Shepherdsville storm for you. The Brownington area, which will be south of Mount Washington, excuse me, over you. It is not severe right now. It could go severe. Understand that we have an extremely severe thunderstorm right now that has been tornado warned for a long time that is north of Hopkinsville. And then I'm going to show you what's coming out of Illinois. So Louisville, let's talk for a second. If what's coming through right now doesn't go severe, the back line is going to be more than likely to be severe. What you're going to see here for Harrisburg, Illinois, is there's a tornado emergency. There are severe thunderstorms that are all towards the west, and then you can see over Indiana as well. There are numerous tornado warnings. Nashville, Indiana, tornado warning. Columbus, Indiana, tornado warning. Sand Creek, Indiana, tornado warning. And then we have our tornado warning that includes large hail right now that is moving near the Lovett area, and that is south of North Vernon. This is our only tornado warned storm right now. If you look at this from the wide perspective and the whole, you can very clearly see that not everybody's going to get severe. Rick, these create a serious dilemma for us when you're, in a sense, trying to deal with a scenario where not everybody's going to see severe. And you message it could be significant severe, but not everybody sees it. And I think you would understand what I'm going to say here. For you, for your house, for your family, that is the most important thing for you. And if it doesn't occur at your house, it's a sigh of relief for you. But it doesn't mean your neighbor doesn't deal with it.
No, and that's the problem. It's so localized that some areas will get damaged while others won't see a thing. So consider it a blessing if you don't deal with some of these storms, because we just had an example of how quickly that these things can wrap up, perhaps produce a tornado, but also some very large hail. And we've seen just off to the west, baseball to even softball size hail, which is just some crazy stuff. We have not had any of that here just yet. Again, the main focus will be on the fact that we have this tornado warning, which still goes until 8:15, so about another 25 minutes or so. The actual rotation itself is not looking as good. So right now on your screen, you see our camera in Seymour, that's on the right, and you also see our velocity, which all it does is sample the winds. The green would be the winds going toward the radar, right, and the reds would be the winds going away from it. So while we still have some clear rotation, it's not as pronounced as it once was. So it is coming down just a tad. You know,
the temperature's cooling here a little bit.
It's cooling, and that's the thing. It's a 1-2 punch setup. This initial line is going to be broken. Not everyone sees them, and if you do see them, then tornadoes and hail will be possible, and then that secondary line comes in, and Mark, that one's probably going to be more of a wind threat than anything else, but, you know, this is the one where it's hard to kind of communicate the 1-2 punch, where the first one's broken, the second one's solid, threats change with each one.
And I think when tomorrow comes about, and everybody gets the news from around the region, and we find out what happened around our region, people will understand why the moderate risk was issued. Right. It doesn't necessarily mean that everybody sees it, but the temperature is pretty high in terms of the atmosphere and the concern that you could generate significant severe. Matthew, you've been watching our camera out of Seymour, which is eyes on the ground. Matthew, you have a lot of experience in Tornado Alley looking at storms. Let's take that camera out of Seymour. We're looking at the updraft base here, Matthew. If this was to generate a tornado, what would we be seeing?
Well, I mean, I do think that we would be seeing a condensation cloud potentially, but in all honesty, I mean, we're a little bit deep into the storm with the rotation, so maybe it would be mainly rain that we'd be seeing. It would be pretty difficult to catch the actual tornado with the camera lens here. But you can see on the backside of the storm a lot of light, the white in the clouds, and so the sun is shining back there, opening up the skies. And you know, we mentioned that earlier today, that when you get that sunshine, you start to destabilize the atmosphere. But now this is behind the storm. This is not typically where we're looking for rotation. You mentioned that earlier. It's not the hook. It's going to be embedded within the middle of the storm and that updraft that you were talking about. So Matthew, keep an eye on that. What we were looking to see is if that generates a lowering. Matthew's on our cameras, continuing to watch those closely. I'm going to take you over to StormView HD right now. New severe thunderstorm warning now for Louisville. This warning just issued for Metro Louisville. Information on the warning. Warnings in effect for 1-inch size hail, winds to 60 miles an hour. This is for Bullitt, Jefferson, Nelson, and Spencer County. 1-inch size hail, 60-mile-an-hour winds. Where is the hail most concerning? Rick's going to be looking at the rotation and if there's any, and wind, and I want to show you where the core of the storm right now is. So that storm right now is Fern Creek, Smyrna,
Fairdale. The greatest potential for hair right now is near the Barrelton area. So this is going to be just across into the Bullitt County area. This is going to be going across the Hillview exit. If you're familiar with this area, then Shepherdsville. Second, there is a core right now that is also just on the southern edge of that just crossed Bardstown Junction along 65 and is heading towards the Brownington area near around High Grove. This is one of those storms that is sitting right on top of the radar site. Rick, we talk about this a lot. The radar site in Fort Knox is kind of a cone of silence. Sometimes when storms leave Fort Knox, we've seen this very frequently.
Extremely frequently.
We get the winds that start to go bonkers. Rick, what are you seeing in terms of wind right now on Storm View 3D and anything that concerns you?
Nothing rotationally that concerns me, but whether it's straight line or whether it's rotating, I mean, I don't see much of a difference because there are some pops now right along the Gene Snyder where winds are around 55 to 60 miles per hour. So this is McIntosh Way, if you're looking right along Vaughan Mill Road and areas like Cortland Drive, just south of Spring Mill, you're getting some pops of wind. And like Mark said, just coming out into southwest Louisville, we are seeing some more stronger winds now, which are just to the east of Valley Station. So if you're looking on Pond Station Road, some 50s, Whitehall Court, the trees are probably blowing. You can hear the whistle from outside going on.
And what are we looking at peak knots there? I'm seeing some what look maybe upper 50s?
Looking at low 50s, probably 52, 53 knots, correct.
So we're talking close to 60.
60s.
Here's a remarkable view out of Louisville. We just showed you the tornado-warned storm in Seymour.
That's it.
That's the tornado-warned storm in Seymour from Louisville, Kentucky.
And there's sun shining on the other side.
And if you look above that, it does even look like we may have some modest clouds over us. That's what it looks like. Now, with this camera, I'm going to rotate this southward so we can look at where we've got the ongoing threat of severe in Louisville. Our camera network that we have within our area, we just can't speak to enough the value of this because it allows us to see the storms and what's going on. That is then panning over to the severe thunderstorm. You can see how quickly this has escalated. We went from no severe thunderstorm warnings now to 1, 2, 3, 4. E-Town's now under a severe thunderstorm warning. They're all over the place now in our area. And we've escalated from where we had just one to where we have a number of these that are now ongoing in many counties in our area, specifically the one that we're watching near Metro Louisville. You can see covers a core of our counties. That's the show in the Metro right now. Let's go back to the tornado-warned storm because that one we have had a focus on. The last time we went up here, we saw rotation that was not overly crazy on the storm. I'm going to just scope it really quickly, looking through it and love it. Grayford, Walnut Ridge, Bigger, North Vernon. I'm not seeing a ton of rotation on this one right now. I'm seeing more concerning storms on that particular line that are raking through southern Indiana, and then the wide perspective here shows we have that storm heading towards Bowling Green. I just want to mention this. This has had a confirmed tornado on it at times. The hail core is going to go into Bowling Green. The rotation may go just to the south of that. And then the wider perspective shows numerous storms with a tornado emergency right now in parts of Illinois, and severe that's behind the initial line as well. So Rick, you're looking at Storm View 3D, viewing in on that tornado warned storm. You got a side-by-side here. We had greens next to reds with significant rotation earlier. I think what we're probably seeing is the top of this storm is running into the storms that are in a little bit to its north. Right. And this thing is struggling a little bit right now.
It's struggling. So when they run into each other, the evacuation aloft, the exhaust, if you will, isn't as effective. So it kind of has some breathing issues, and that does mean it can kind of hold it at bay. Not seeing anything crazy when it comes to rotation. That is some really good news. I'm going to switch on the right-hand side from what we know as velocity or wind to something called NROT. And this is normalized rotation. I can take you back just a couple scans when it comes to both the reflectivity and the NROT. And you had consolidated area of rotation right there, which was about 3 miles to the west of Lovett. And then and that was buried, keep in mind. And as we went forward in time, that area kind of spread out a little bit. So the rotation, not as tight, not as concerned with a tornado at this point in time, but the strongest core of the storm is now southeast of Vernon. The northern edge is clipping Butlerville. There's some heavy rain. There's some lightning. There could also be some tiny hail just south of Vernon. I've turned on the bill, which is known as vertically integrated liquid. And it does show that the little hail core has crossed State Road 3 and is now approaching State Road 7. So it's just between the two, sandwich, which means it will cross over State Road 7 very briefly here. Some tiny hail around County Road 175 and 150 South, probably within the next 5 minutes.
And there's no question that the intensity on this storm has come down. You're going to see this kind of stuff that looks like a mushroom cloud out there today. This is just simply explosive thunderstorms that are developing. You can see around our area, look, there are numerous warnings. I'm just going to tell you this scenario is probably not going to generate warnings for every single county. But I think what we're going to see is the initial core storms move through. We'll see a secondary area that comes through after. I think when it's all said and done, if you're asking me how many people will go under warnings, based on everything I have right now, I'm going to say probably 60% of our counties will go under some type of a warning before this is all said and done. And I would say if you're near 64 and south, the likelihood of you getting a warning through this entire evening, whether it's the first wave or the second wave, is very, very high. Rick, I'm going to head over to the wall real quickly here. What I want to do is now go through a look at the storms in the north, what's in Louisville, what's to the south, and what's to come here. So I'm going to bail over to the weather wall as we're going to do a little bit of tracking right now. Matthew, continue if you can, letting us know what you see from viewer pictures coming into our area. Tornado warning remains in effect until 8:15. Matthew, on that tornado warning?
Let me double check on that.
Okay.
But they did take Seymour out. Yes, 8:15.
Okay. Tornado warning till 8:15. New status from the Weather Service keeps it till 8:15. As noted, just got a status removal on Jackson County. So Jennings County, the only county under a tornado warning. Once the tornado warning is allowed to expire, we're going to make some decisions here on whether we go back to programming. My feeling is we're probably going to stay just a moment to get this through Louisville and then decide if we go back to programming. Also, it's going to depend on what's going on near Evansville. So we're going to start off with the only tornado warning that we have in effect for our area. This is until 8:15. Tornado warning in effect for Jennings County, and we'll zoom in on that area. So this storm is absolutely getting wrecked right now. Part of the problem is, so the way that thunderstorms work is you saw how it looks like a kind of grenade, like a mushroom cloud exploding, right? What that is the air rising in the thunderstorm. Remember, we have absolutely absurd amounts of energy today, so that air is going to be rising somewhere in the neighborhood of 100 miles an hour today. If that air is going up at 100 miles an hour, it's generating rain and hail at a very fast pace. So that has to be pushed out or pushed downstream. If not, it stays right on top of the updraft, which is the lifeline of the thunderstorm. If you keep that sitting right on top of the updraft, you collapse the updraft and you weaken the storm. So what's happening is the storm here is running into the storm on the northern side of it. We call this anvil to anvil. The problem is that stops the storm from intensifying. This is the storm right now that is near bigger, and it is no question weaker than what it was. The area of rotation has crossed Indiana 3. Let's scope inside there near the bigger area north of DuPont, see if we've seen any uptick in rotation over the last 2 to 3 minutes since the last time Rick looked in there. We're looking in the bigger area, maybe a little bit. We've got a couple of these greens next to the reds right now. It may also be a little bit of, this may be a little bit of noise in the radar as well. We'll continue to watch that area well. Rick, let's go back over. Yeah, I mean, it does have a little bit of a small hook on it right now. I would say not imminent, but it is definitely worth watching. All of our atmosphere is very, very explosive right now. Rick, let's track that area where at least we have a tiny amount of rotation. What's the speed on these?
These are going 65.
6.5?
Let me verify that one.
Okay. Uh-oh, hook's getting stronger.
It's 55, so we're going now 55 to the east.
And that thing is now gaining a stronger hook on it. That is definitely starting to uptick. Rexville 11 minutes from now, 15 minutes from now in the Barbersville area, Benman 17 minutes from now, and 19 minutes from now in the Cross Plains area. The hook on the storm is getting better. There is clearly a cycle that has finished. Bigger, you need to be in your tornado safe spot right now. This would mean downstairs, underneath something, I need you in the center part of your house, and you got to keep away from windows. What's a good choice? Closet in the middle of the house, bathroom in the middle of the house. If you can get to a lowest floor, meaning the basement, always going to be safer. But we need to be careful. This is definitely showing more rotation on it than it was. And Rick is going to rip over here to Storm View 3D. So again, this is going to be Vernon here, North Vernon, and bigger is right here. That area of rotation is right here. Rick, can we move back 2 scans on this? I just want to assess where it was and now what it's doing currently. So you can see we didn't have much here. And what I'm saying, look at where the reds are. They're very, very dull. Now let's move into the current scan as we go forward north of DuPont by around 3 miles. And you can see a little bit brighter here on some of our pinks. And we've got some greens here next to it. This is not over-the-top rotation, but we're definitely seeing a presentation that looks a little bit stronger than it was. Watching this closely near the bigger Indiana area. Let's head back now to Louisville, take a look at what's going on in Louisville from Storm View HD. Severe weather right now, potentially in Metro Louisville. Some 60-mile-an-hour winds here could be occurring. My concern specifically, Fisherville. This is going to be Billtown Road along the Gene Snyder. This right here is going to be Fairmont, Glen Mary here. You can see right here will be Little Spring Farms, Mount Washington here. This you can see, those
Strong
are
winds.
higher. Those are some, what are we looking, 65 knotters here, maybe 60?
These are 65 knots.
So these are 70-mile-an-hour winds right now that are showing up on radar. Billtown Road's right here. This is going to be J-Town. So this coming through, this is Taylorsville Road right here. So right just on the south side of downtown J-Town, we have an area maybe of 70-mile-an-hour winds that are occurring right now. You need to be really careful on this area that's moving towards Hopewell. And then Fisherville's right here. Again, this right here is Bardstown Road. This, Rick, is going to cross over, it looks like the Gene Snyder between Billtown Road right here and Fisherville. It definitely looks like everything is starting to ramp up. Rick, how about the rest of this storm? Is this the only area where we're looking at higher end peak winds?
Yeah.
Or are you seeing some of that elsewhere in other locations?
There are pops, but this is definitely covering the most amount of real estate, the most people. If we're going to get some power outages here, this is definitely a scenario that could lead to that. So I'm showing you velocity, and I've come in very tight on our analyst product. So this shows, just to give you some roads, because these are going to be definitely north of 60 miles per hour. Chenoweth Run Road, you know that road? Very powerful winds. So Old Healy Road, also going to be dealing with these strong winds. Saratoga Woods Drive, if you live there. And also on the eastern side, let's say, again, that's just Chenoweth Road. Oak Lawn and Preakness Court, another area that's seeing these strong winds. Right now it's inside the Snyder. This is tracking off to the east. This will cross right over the Gene Snyder in the next 5 to 10 minutes with some very strong winds, and they're actually getting stronger. Mark, yeah, this is right over the Snyder now. New scan came in.
Rick, we've got a more of a orangish in there. That looks like that could be a pop maybe of 70 knots.
I would absolutely. That's 90 knots, Mark.
So then
that
may be noise. What about the pinks there? The big pinks that are over Fisher.
The big pinks that we're seeing.
I think there's some 70s in there for sure. Like some of these down here just south of the Snyder, that one,
That's a 66.
So 66 would be 72 miles an hour. So we're getting a real view here of what looks like we're getting winds that are probably over 70. Matthew, you're viewing this on Storm View HD. You're focused in on around Taylorsville Road along the Gene Snyder here. This is an area that kind of has grown in terms of structures, homes, a lot of building actually occurring on Taylorsville Road outside of the Gene Snyder. With 70-mile-an-hour winds moving through this area, you got to be seriously careful.
Absolutely. I mean, of course, it could cause down power lines. Whether it blows over the power lines themselves or more likely knocking trees down on those power lines. It's an area that's well traveled, going along Taylorsville Road out toward Finchville. And then folks going to Taylorsville. So both of those roads are going to be well traveled, and folks that are going down it, I mean, especially if you're in blinding rain like this, you're not going to see the issues that may occur when the when the limbs fall on roadways and things like that.
And speaking of could there be power outages, I mean, let's not do the could there be. Let's see, are there power outages right now? And we'll come back to this. LG&E is reporting 274 customers without power here in Metro Louisville right now. We'll see if this number goes up. This has become one of our real-time assessments. Are there storms that are actually doing damage right now? The view of that storm from downtown Louisville on our camera, this is sitting atop the 800 building. You can definitely see the core of that storm. In terms of whether it's doing damage, what we would look for is on the base of that, pops. Do we have pops? And this would be something that we would look for. They would be ground emanating upward. I don't see anything in there right now. So we'll continue to watch this camera very, very closely and assess as things change. Want to show you where our tornado warning was. Louisville will come back to you. We're not going to leave you on this one. Rick, continue to monitor that one on 3D. I do want to be very, very clear, by the way, on one thing. It is very, 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 very dangerous right now north of our area. There is now a confirmed tornado on the ground that is moving towards I-65 near Columbus. If you have any friends there, I know this is not our viewing area, but this is one county north of our viewing area, and this is an exceptionally dangerous storm right now with a confirmed tornado on the ground right now. This is 1.5-inch size hail, tornado confirmed on the ground, heading towards Columbus, Indiana. The unbelievable point of this is an area that was also hit by a tornado earlier. The tornado warned storm that was in our area for the North Vernon area, Jennings County, is now left the county. So the Weather Service is now going to have to take the time and determine when they're going to let that expire. But you can see to our west, we've got numerous severe thunderstorm warnings. We have tornado warning that is just west of Bowling Green. And we have our severe thunderstorm warning that's moving through parts of Metro Louisville. So, Rick, the thing I'm starting to be concerned about, we know it's a highly volatile atmosphere.
Absolutely.
What makes me a little uneasy now is are we going to get on the southern edge of that a curl? Are we going to get anything that tries to rotate? And you look near Shepherdsville and near Bardstown Junction, and I think we're starting to get one of those little edges, maybe that hook. That could be the beginning of maybe this storm transitioning from some wind threat maybe into a tornado threat on the southern side of this.
Correct, and that's the same evolution that we saw with the storm off to the north. Began more,
exactly,
and then all of a sudden started developing hooks on the southern side. So this is a real concern, and that's right now in Bullitt County. We're starting to see a little tail. If you look just to the south and west of Shepherdsville,
right, you
can point out, actually I'll go show that little tail real quick, just so you guys have an idea as to what we're looking for. These appendages, these little tails, those are telltale signs that we may have a tornado which is trying to form. And I say trying just to give you a heads up, because if you look in Louisville, if you look in Bullitt County, we don't have a tornado warning. This is just your ordinary severe thunderstorm warning, but because we have some turning with height, then a tornado cannot be ruled out. And right here, here's Shepherdsville, there's I-65, here's that little tail, which is trying to come down, which would be right around Bardstown Junction. Looking inside that, we have a scope. So think of this like a doctor using an x-ray. If you look at this storm, all you see is the rain coming down, but the scope allows us to see inside. Like if you had a broken bone, for example, this can see inside and tell us whether or not we have rotation. Nothing significant right now, but this could surely be an area that spins up pretty rapidly because there's so much instability in the atmosphere and so much fuel to work with that this can happen in almost an instant. So right now, just a severe thunderstorm for Shepherdsville, all the way up 65 through Pioneer Village. If you're in Mount Washington, you are getting rocked by rain right now. The same applies to Taylorsville. Heavy rain, lightning, and also can't rule out some hail inside the storms. It looks like a tiny little core, which is just to the west of Brooks. Not seeing terribly signals of hail showing up in Taylor County, but once you see a little pop of purple once in a while, then that could signify that maybe a hail core has formed, and then once the updrafts can't keep that hail in the top of the storm anymore, at that point, it would fall out and collapse. So this is the thing. You have people under warnings getting strong, severe storms, and you have people who aren't seeing a thing. And that's going to be the way this evening goes on until that main line comes through, guys.
And I will mention that we have a camera in Simpsonville where some of those strongest winds are approaching. Let's head to Simpsonville and take a look. So this is from our Simpsonville camera, and you can see what we refer to as scud. So scud is some low-hanging, what looks like mean clouds. I'm going to move our camera a little bit westward. I'm not sure if I can without running out of view, but I'm going to try. So let me see how far we can go. We run into the edge right there. So this is where we do have and are showing some 60+ mile-per-hour winds potentially moving towards the Simpsonville area right now. Wider perspective shows we have numerous tornado warnings just to our north. Matthew, it does appear that a tornado did hit and was confirmed earlier as we look towards around the Bloomington area. And we actually even have pictures from viewers they're sending in of this.
We do. So we've got at least one picture. If we could pull that up. I've got
it's on Weather Picks.
Yes, on Weather Picks. That one coming in from Linda Hittner from Bloomington, Indiana. You can see when we get that up here in just a second from Weather Picks, that's going to be a funnel that's made it to the ground. You can see that dark, kind of dirty looking cloud right in the middle of the picture, and you can actually see some debris that's off in the yard there, closer to the tree line. You can actually see some trees down. We do have a new tornado warning associated with that same storm. The confirmed tornado warning does include northern Jennings County. However, Mark, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, I think that this is going to skirt just north of Jennings County. We actually have a video of the tornado from
where
earlier.
Is
this one coming out of Bloomington, I believe.
Okay, so a couple things you want to note there is if you look in the center of the screen, you can see that's moving to the left. So that is pulling air around, and you can see how it's wrapping into that tornado. So this was the tornado that touched down in the Bloomington area. Matthew, you dealt with stuff like this in Alabama quite frequently. Tell us what you're seeing there.
Yeah, absolutely. So just on the far left-hand side of your screen, we were able to see that tornado, and we'll get that video back up here in just a second. Again, this is associated with all of these tornado warnings that are just north of our region. So we do have one tornado warning in Jennings. That's getting ready to expire here in 4 minutes. That's not the tornado warned storm that we were just showing you video of. If we're able to get that video back up, I want to show folks that rotation again so I can point out the funnel that was trying to make it to the ground. And if we can't get that, there we go. So again, if we could put that on the green screen behind me, that would be great, because on the left-hand side of your screen, you can see that funnel trying to form, and it gets a little bit better there. And in fact, if you're looking right along the tree line, you can see where it is touching down briefly. So it didn't look like it lasted very long, but now they have the confirmed tornado warning on it with a 1.75-inch hail. Considerable damage can be caused by that. And so that is undoubtedly a monster storm. That's why we have that tornado warning for the northern edge of Jennings County. But Mark, again, like I said earlier, I think it's going to skirt just north of Jennings. And if it catches it, it would be probably the far northeastern, that little triangle portion of Jennings County.
So this is the storm that Matthew was referring to here. This is now a tornado confirmed on the ground that is going to potentially affect the northern part of Jennings County. So I want to be clear on one thing. The area of rotation you can see near Columbus, Indiana. You can very, very, very clearly see the hook on this thing. So the motion on this is taking it east-northeast. You can very clearly see that area of rotation. If the trajectory holds, it would keep the area of rotation out of Jennings County. The Weather Service traditionally doesn't play games with this stuff, in particular when it's a tornado confirmed on the ground. In this case, they're obviously not playing around, but you can see, I'm going to put the information on here. This is a tornado confirmed on the ground right now for Jennings County. 1.5-inch size hail. Notice the threat is considerable. The tornado is about to hit Columbus, Indiana, and it's about to go just south of Columbus, Indiana. I know we have our producers in there. Can you guys check to see if there's any cameras near Columbus, Indiana, in particular one that will be looking south of Columbus, Indiana, to see if we can view whether there is actually a tornado on that or not. But you can see it's not good. You do not want to see an area of rotation going over an interstate. Rick, from our perspective, like the most populated are always a high concern, but the problem with an interstate is your vehicle's the worst place you can possibly be in a tornado.
It is, and all those myths that you hear about going through on an underpass to get some shelter, like those are False. That's not
Terrible
true.
ideas.
Yeah, really bad idea. And then if there's no sturdy structure anywhere nearby, you're left in the car, and that's not a good place to be. So if you have friends and family making that trip, you know, tell them they need to find a sturdy structure. They need to find some place that can withstand these very strong winds. I mean, the hook on that thing is just nasty looking. You hate to see a radar presentation like that because you know what's going on. I mean, that is a very pronounced hook. It does look like Columbus is in the hail core right now.
Right, and then what happens, then you pop out. So you go into that hail core, you pop out of the hail core and into the tornado.
And then into the tornado, exactly. And then you can see, I mean, just how wrapped up that thing is. It's looking bad. So, you know, this is just out of our area. I want to make that very, very clear. But as we mentioned, Jennings County, the northern edge, just north of Geneva, is under that tornado warning, which is a confirmed observed one. That's why you see the pink, or the purple rather. Typically, you see red, which would tell you we have an ordinary tornado warning. One level above that is the purple, where it is observed, confirmed, and then the highest echelon above that would be tornado emergency. And if that was the case, you would have two purple polygons just outlining one another. So right now we have a confirmed tornado, not good, which is headed toward Columbus. It's Friday at 8:15. People probably out to dinner, letting their guard down, just trying to relax and have a good time and enjoy the weekend. But this isn't the day for that, Mark.
And we have new severe thunderstorm warnings now on this storm that has come through Mount Washington. It's a longer one. So these are, when the warnings get longer like this, all it says, and it should say to you, is I have more confidence that this is going to generate severe. The problem in this scenario is we have an exceptionally volatile atmosphere. I tried my best, and you kind of were in the same. We talked about this a lot earlier. How do you communicate potential for more significant severe weather that may not affect as many people? When we dealt with the scenario on April 2nd, it was this massive line, and we knew that a huge amount of our area was going to be hit. These are more isolated, but they have then the potential for slightly higher amounts of severe, and you can see, you know, what's going on in Columbus, what hit Bloomington, what affected the Paducah area, and then now we had a tornado emergency in southern Illinois. Rick, versus April 2nd, the intensity of severe has been higher. The hail has been much larger. Just hasn't affected everybody.
It hasn't affected everybody, and that's really the difficulty in this, because if it doesn't happen to you, it didn't happen. And I know that's probably the way you're thinking. Even in Louisville, for example, let's just say this. In downtown, we got some light rain. As opposed to along and just outside the Snyder, we saw some winds north of 60 miles per hour potentially. So the difference within the county alone, I mean, just shows you how vast these storms can be in terms of intensity from one location to the next. I do want to mention, though, for those in Louisville, you haven't seen much rainfall in the north and western side, which means the secondary line still has some energy to work with. So just because the southwestern portion got some rain and the southeastern portion, it doesn't mean the entire county's in the clear. So we'll watch as that next area, next wave of thunderstorms moves in. I am looking at that storm inside of it a little bit, the one that's including Mount Washington.
I'm going to come over to you on analyst.
Okay, Taylorsville. And I'm also looking for areas of rotation. I am not seeing any areas of rotation, so I'm feeling good about that in terms of the tornado threat. Again, there are still some pops of wind, and you can tell when you see those areas of brighter red, or even more intense would be some pops of pink. But there is a tiny little hail core, which is just north of Taylorsville. May also be seeing some hail just south of Mount Washington, but nothing that is terribly big. So really right now I would say the main concern with that warning is going to be for the 60-mile-per-hour winds, but not seeing the same signature in terms of winds or hail that we once did before, Mark.
And I will say, so again, since we have you here, there are areas that are probably going to miss out on this. So you're going to have an area that occurs right through here that may not see any severe weather whatsoever. Louisville, we've already had a severe thunderstorm warning for Metro. We have the second line. What traditionally should happen here is this second line is significantly more filled in. Why? Well, the front's out here. So what will happen is this will likely now form into a very, very strong line that generates potentially destructive winds. That line is moving off to the east and will come in behind these storms. You're probably wondering what occurred in Louisville. Has that decimated the air mass? It's probably hurt it to an extent, but I don't know if decimated would be the right word. That second line could certainly affect Louisville, and then our southern counties would very likely be affected by that. That would include areas like Hardinsburg, Elizabethtown, Litchfield, Munfordville, Springfield, Greensburg, Columbia, E-Town, Hodgenville, Bardstown. You're likely going to be affected by that second line that comes across the area. But it is entirely possible, as I just noted, that areas like Paoli, French Lick, Salem, through around Scottsburg, Henryville, Madison may end up in between these two lines and may not get anything out of those two lines. So that's kind of where we are as we stand right now. A tornado confirmed still in effect for the northern part of Jennings County. Boy, I tell you what, this is going to be close, but it may just stay a touch north. The tornado confirmed has now been changed over to what we call a regular tornado warning. Look, it doesn't mean it's no big deal. It's right over Columbus, Indiana right now. We're going to find out very, very quickly if this is indeed for sure producing a tornado, because if it is, we will get reports very, very quickly. But it does appear that that area of rotation is probably going to stay out of Jennings County as it stands right now. It is something we'll continue to watch really, really closely. But this probably is the most intense storm that we have anywhere in our viewing area right now. The severe thunderstorm warning remains in effect for parts of the metro. If you're in Louisville, the warning edges right around Louisville. So it does include Bullitt County. This does include, let me make sure I have counties correct here. This does include Bullitt, northern Nelson, parts of Spencer, and Shelby County. And you can see there's a ton of tornado warnings on that line on the northern side. And then also of interest eventually on what's going to be moving towards us. Rick, there's a tornado confirmed on the ground near the Evansville area, one of what has been a number. Thinking back through this year, I don't know if we've had this many confirmed tornado warnings in our region. This seems just like the most we've had, but that's over Morganfield. That's going to continue to move east. That area is going to become a really dangerous, potentially destructive wind producer.
Right, and those storms are in fact moving in our direction. Mark, I just want to go back over to the 3D.
Okay, there you go.
Okay, perfect, because just showing you, there's the warning, that orange line that you can see, right? That's just to the north of Mount Washington. There are actually some gates or some pops of wind that are outside of the warning in southern Jefferson County that are presenting some winds around 55 miles per hour, maybe even close to 60. So just because you are not in the warning on the northern side of that storm doesn't mean you can't get some stronger winds. I'm still keeping an eye on the south side to make sure we're not seeing any signs of rotation, so I've switched over to storm relative, which really shows the motion of the storm, and it is indicating that there is no rotation just yet. But again, I'm just watching the southern side very carefully, because if there were, and if there was going to be rotation, then the southern area is the one we'd have to watch very carefully. We had the second line to go. I mean, this first one, so sporadic, and just there's really no rhyme or reason to who's getting what right now. But that second line, it's going to be far more organized. And that's why we have to watch out for that second line. And
we did damage.
There we go.
Okay, so we know that now we have done damage from the storms that moved through Metro Louisville. So now, remember, we used as our baseline the 235 that were without power. We have 1,438. Look, I will be just transparent. That's not a monumental number.
Right.
But at the same time, if you're one of the 1,438 people without power, that's a super big deal for you. What we understand is the concentration of this is near Lake Forest. Makes sense, Rick. That's where we saw that damage area. Look from Billtown Road towards Lake Forest and then ultimately towards Simpsonville. So there is the outage specifics. You can see that is located. If you look there on the image, the Gene Snyder is on the left side of that image, the up-down. The east-west is going to be 64. Eastwood, you can see there right on the bottom, and then the core of that is right near Lake Forest, which you can see on the top side there You've got Shelbyville Road. You can see where Beckley is there, Beckley Station. So this is going to be just outside of the Gene Snyder, near Shelbyville Road, Valhalla area included, Lake Forest area, with 1,435 total without power, although it does look like they're noting 2,100 without power, so that number may have gone up even more since where we were earlier. Today is probably one of the hardest things that I think that we have to deal with in what we do. Look, I can tell you straight up that we're going to have people that are going to be really, really hateful towards us because some people did not see severe. I can tell you that we'll probably have damage out of the Bloomington area. We're probably going to have damage that comes out of Columbus, Indiana area. I don't know if we're going to find damage or not out of Jennings County, but that's where we had the tornado warning, and out of Jackson County. Remains to be seen if that did or did not produce a tornado. We have this area, and we're still under a tornado warning for the northern part of Jennings County. And yes, unfortunately for you, you've had to deal with this on multiple occasions. The hook on this one is certainly not what it was. And then second, it does appear like it's not going to affect our area. We're going to stay with it. Bottom line is our job is to cover our counties. And you are in our viewing area in Jennings County. I like to say this, but it doesn't matter if you're the biggest county or the smallest county in our area. We're going to stay with the storms, and we're going to watch them. We're watching also these storms in the metro Louisville area. This is where we have the severe thunderstorm warning. These are specifically outside of Louisville, technically on the warning right now. This would include areas like Crenshaw, Taylorsville, you're included, Little Mount, Figs, Finchville, Southville, Mount Eden, and then near the Waddy-Peytona exit going towards the Frankfort area. This is not showing any transition into tornado concern right now. Would it? Will it? As long as these storms, in my opinion, are all banked up against each other, they will have the same evacuation issue that happened in Jennings County, meaning they seed themselves. They're more prone for downdrafts and straight line winds than they are for rotation. And Rick, you are viewing this in Storm View 3D, correct, and we still see those pops showing up from time to time, which are in that more pink magenta area. And we see one of those right now just north of the Mount Eden area in South Shelby County. And that's showing knots of 58, which would translate to 65-mile-per-hour winds. There could be pockets of winds even stronger. There's even a little pocket just south of Elk Creek. That's crossing over Plum Ridge Road, and that will eventually approach Elk Creek Road. So those of you, and there you go. So there's more. It looks like it's kind of spreading out a little bit. We've got to be careful on that edge. That back edge there is still trying to show some pull. It's trying to pull. So again, the strongest winds right now, this is in the neighborhood of 63 knots now. So close to 70s. This is close to considerable damage that could be done. And another important point, we've had a lot of severe weather so far in 2025. This is really the first time that all of the trees have all of their leaves, and that's going to make a big difference because the amount of surface area, the drag is going to be far more. It doesn't take as much wind to knock some of these trees down and cause power outages. So that's just something I want you to keep in mind moving forward. Now that we're mentioning some of these stronger winds now moving down Mount Eden Road, this is definitely one you have to watch out for. And we know that St. Louis was hit by a tornado earlier, and we have unfortunate bad news. The tornado that hit St. Louis earlier has left 4 people dead. We know the police are searching buildings for more people who are trapped or hurt. We know that the National Weather Service had confirmed the touchdown between 2:30 and 2:50 in the Forest Park area, and we know that part of a church crumbled. A tornado did hit a church in St. Louis, and one person perished in that church from a tornado that hit. So the setup here, and I'll say it one more, it supports more intense severe weather than what we saw on April 2nd. It doesn't support the amount of coverage. Right. And that kind of goes hand in hand. I said this to Scott Reynolds when I was on TV earlier. I said, Scott, that, you know, he asked what it would look like compared to April 2nd. And I said to him that I don't think that, he said, is there any way we can get away from this? I said, there may be less coverage, But the problem, if there's less coverage, is it's going to be more intense.
Right.
And you know, that's unfortunately what has happened. We don't know if there's any injuries or anything else from some of our other confirmed tornadoes that we know touched down. We had a touchdown near the Bloomington area. We still have a tornado confirmed on a warning right now in the northern part of our area. This one is north of Seymour. And you can see on the bottom right there, Matthew, I just want to check. I don't know if I think he's in the control room. I'm just going to check real quickly. I believe the camera that we have right there in the bottom is looking due north. Is our camera, Matthew, in Seymour looking due north at the tornado warned storm?
It was.
And your mic is off, just FYI.
I'll pull it back up here in just a second.
Okay.
I know we got another camera from the Seymour area. Yeah, that one's looking due north.
Okay, so that is at the tornado warned storm.
Yes,
That
yes.
is a beast.
So the interesting thing about this, I'm going to head over to the weather wall because I do want to explain what you're looking at there. So this is the tornado warned storm. I want to stay on the camera if we could, if we can stay with the camera from Seymour. But the tornado warned storm is not the same storm that it was earlier. On our camera, we can definitely see that the height of the storm does not look as high as it once did. So it is weakening just a little bit. Second, the rotation area is not the same that it once was. This is the view from the camera. So the top of the storm you can very clearly see is right here. What makes today different than most storms is you normally can't look actually into the structure of the storm. You can right now. What we can see here is a tilted updraft. What's that say? It says we have really strong winds above the ground. So if the storm is completely vertical like this, it means that there's no mid-level winds. But right here, see the tilted updraft? What we don't see is this massive anvil pushing downwind. And second, we don't see something coming back against the shear. So it appears right now that this has weakened some. On the underside of the storm, this right here is the updraft base of the storm, the lifeline. So if there was a tornado that was to form, we would see it happening live on our camera right here, right now. What we don't see even is a lot of lightning occurring within this particular storm either. So everything to me tells me the intensity is coming down somewhat. But we'll continue to keep an eye on this. This is our only tornado warning within our area, and we'll continue to see waves. What we're probably not going to see here in Louisville, out of this first one is already passed. We'll watch then for that second wave, for thunderstorms to come in. And Rick, you've got control of HD right now. What we're going to have to transition to Louisville is in what's going on near Evansville, and that's going to be round number 2. Now, if you're in areas like a chunk of our southern Indiana, they may not get either of these.
That's true.
And you basically had that split scenario where the northern line went one county north of us. We did get the tornado warnings in Jennings County and in Jackson, but south of that to the Ohio River, there's going to be a gap area of probably 2 counties wide that on either one of these lines may not get either of it.
Right, and if you don't get it, instead of getting mad, maybe consider yourself lucky considering there may be a tornado that moved into Columbus. We've seen damage and unfortunately fatalities that happened in St. Louis. That just goes to show that if you don't get it, that's going to be a good thing because the next round it will have a serious wind threat with it. I just want to show you where we're actually watching this line come from.
And Rick, by the way, somebody reported fierce winds in E-Town. That may be that collapsing a little bit there.
Okay, yeah, so we'll focus in on that storm as well. But just also want to mention Bowling Green, also under a tornado warning. So I know Matthew was mentioning, you know, you
A lot
have
of families, you got kids down there still. You maybe they're taking summer classes or they're just hanging out there a little bit longer, whatever the case may be. We do have a decent little hook on the western side of the storm moving north of Gasper. That's going to head directly into Bowling Green because this has been moving east at about 50 miles per hour, I think, recently. So it does look like a monster of a storm, but the rotation doesn't seem very significant down there, would you say, Mark? I mean, just from a quick look.
Yeah, and we're looking at this from Fort Campbell.
Yes, the closest one.
Yeah, so the area of rotation right now, the problem is that it definitely has a hook on it. This is a storm with a long history of producing severe weather. Second, we have what we call the flying eagle or the flying V. which if you could just stay there for a moment, Matthew. This split eagle and flying V is right here. What that means is that it has a very, very distinct tail core on it, and it means that it has a strong updraft on it. When you see the split V like this, we're very, very clear that this is a dangerous situation where it is a strong, long-lived storm. Lastly, the area of rotation is heading right into Bowling Green. It's not like it's north or it's south. It's going literally directly into Bowling Green. So like you said, Matthew, for us, you know, for you specifically, you spent obviously years at Bowling Green at WKU. It's a meteorology program. I suspect there's a lot of young meteorologists that are probably, if they're there, trying to look at this. We were all a little bit dumb and like that when we were younger and didn't realize.
Go outside, check it out. I want to see it from the top of PS1 or PS2, the parking structures down there. I did it all the time.
And we can tell you as slightly older children that we know that bad things can happen with that. But
Slightly more mature.
If you do
have
have
children, that's why I still said children.
If you have family down there, go ahead, let them know there's a tornado warned storm heading your way. It doesn't have a crazy tornado signature on it, but it does have that hook, and it's a very intense storm with large hail associated with it as well.
And back over to StormView HD. So for Louisville, we start to turn our attention to the back line. So is that line going to be far enough north to get into Louisville? I can tell you there are real questions, and it is not a slam dunk that Louisville will even get that second line. If the most likely scenario, in my professional opinion, is that this second line is going to go probably just south of Louisville. So it is conceivable that a chunk of Louisville may not get severe out of this one. It's possible. I will tell you, I will still say possible only because what you see here is there's still lightning right along 64. It may still intensify and push north into Louisville, but I have more confidence in areas that are near the Western and Bluegrass Parkways. Rick, you've got some new information as well on what we know has occurred.
Yeah, so this is a damage that we're seeing out of Seymour, so just letting production know that we're looking for that jackknife semi. This is I-65 near Seymour north. The left lane is closed. This is between US 50 and 700. And look at the traffic there. Not a good situation.
That's a parking lot.
Yeah. So it's hard to identify.
And where is this specifically?
This is 65 right near Seymour, so you can actually see some of the exits.
Yeah, US 50 and East 700.
Okay, so if this is a jackknife, I guess then the real question is, would that have been the rotation that caused it? The rotation, remember, the first area of rotation was about a mile south of Seymour. The second one was near Lovett, which would be southeast of Seymour. So this will be interesting to see if this is actually where that rotation did go over.
I'm very curious. I mean, those semis have so much surface area.
No, absolutely.
I mean, big truck semis, the first ones to get those winds to spin you around. So yeah, hopefully everyone's okay in that situation. When you have a jackknife semi, it doesn't sound good. So, you know, and if there's traffic around you, that can be a very dangerous situation, not only for the semi, but for the cars that are trying to travel nearby. So again, we'll keep you updated if we get any more information regarding the jackknife semi in Seymour, but right now not seeing any storms in Seymour, which is good. There's a ton of lightning off to your north. That's also where we have that stronger storm. In Louisville, we still have no severe thunderstorm warning, but the storm just south of us is moving off to the east, so now confined to mainly Shelby County, and there is still a little bit, just a tiny little tail that we don't want to take our eyes off of, but there are over 4,000 lightning strikes right now. These storms are electric. That just goes to show how much instability, how much fuel, just how agitated the atmosphere is right now, and it will not change until we get that line through. So there's still plenty of fuel out there for the secondary line that's stretching from Evansville through Paducah, and that has to come through. I would say beginning around 9, but more so in the 10 o'clock hour is when Louisville really has to be heightened for that secondary line. So we're not done just yet, Louisville. I know you saw parts of it go under a severe thunderstorm warning. It doesn't mean the night's over. You can hang it up, turn off the TV, and let it go, because there's still going to be a secondary line somewhere in the neighborhood around 10 o'clock.
And of at least note is we're now starting to see more of a tail on this thing. Maybe some hints of a little bit of rotation near the Southville area. near Mount Eden. Not anything that would blow me away, but at least some. It's the back edge of that cluster, that initial cluster that moved through. If something was to go tornado warned, we would still need to get a dominant cell out of this little cluster here. I don't think that can happen by the time this storm would leave our viewing area, but we'll at least I'm going to give us 1 or 2 more scans. The tornado warning has expired now for Jennings County. Tornado watch continues for a whole area. Severe thunderstorm warnings continue here for Bullitt, Spencer, and parts of Shelby County. We probably can release Bullitt from that warning, and we're getting close to the northeast side of Spencer, maybe 1 or 2 scans. Ultimately, what's going to happen here is we'll return you to programming at some point, and then we're going to have to wait to see what that second area does as it moves through. We do have some video of what occurred out of the St. Louis area, where we have 4 confirmed fatalities from a tornado that occurred a little bit earlier. And what we know on that one, it's some of the information hurts to speak on this one. We know that we have 4 fatalities. We know that a church collapsed. That's the view of the tornado that was occurring in St. Louis earlier. I would say on a positive here, it's not super wide, you know, but you get a tornado that goes through a population center like that, and unfortunately, you're going to have bad things that happen. So we know the 4 confirmed fatalities. This is the church that you can see partially collapsed. We do know that we lost somebody in the St. Louis area in this church or around this church when the tornado hit. Please keep the people of St. Louis in your thoughts and prayers tonight, as they have had a deadly tornado that has moved through the St. Louis area earlier this afternoon. This was around 3-ish. Where that tornado occurred. So we turn our attention now closer to home and back towards our area. I want to show you what's the most likely situation moving forward. We still have a tornado warning for the Morganfield area. We have a severe thunderstorm out ahead of that near Owensboro. In my opinion, what we're going to see here is this cluster probably moving in this direction. As I said earlier, it is worth saying one more time, I can accept the fact that some people may say you pushed out a moderate risk of severe weather. You told us that the atmosphere was primed for some significant, and then it did not occur in Metro Louisville, and it may not. It may not, and I can accept that. And some may not be happy with me on that, and what I can tell you is that the conditions are and were quite volatile for today. And when it comes to severe weather, when they're more cellular, you cannot guarantee that everybody's going to see it. I can go back to March 2nd, 2012. Henryville, Pekin, and Borden were hit by an EF4 tornado. Louisville got nothing that day. And there were people in Louisville that said, you guys called this moderate risk or this high risk of severe weather, played this up as this massive thing. And it was for everybody that got hit by the EF4. But there were people that did not. And that is the reality of more cellular structures. Not everybody sees that severe. So I just want to mention it because, again, I know there's going to be questions on what happened. I think that what you have seen here that was really interesting, Rick, is as this started to form, there was an area that continued to move northeastward before it made the right move. That then ultimately created this cluster of severe that moved through Bloomington, and there's another tornado warning north of Bloomington, went through Columbus, and you can see the new severe thunderstorm warning there. And then we had a cluster that immediately right moved, goes through Paducah, now is near Bowling Green, a long track supercell. Whether it has a long track tornado on it or not is a completely different story. But this is a supercell that has been doing at least damage and potentially tornado stuff for a really long time. Whether it actually touched down or it's been aloft, we'll know as the Weather Service will do their surveys. But if you're on a line from Hardinsburg through north of E-Town, I would say Lebanon Junction, I would say Bardstown, I would say Springfield, I would go south into the Campbellsville, Greensburg area, Munfordville, Litchfield. You're going to see severe out of the second line.
Yeah.
That, I think, is the one thing that we can probably say with certainty on that second line. And if you're in areas like French Lick, Paoli through Salem, Clarksville, Henryville, Madison, you may not get anything. And you may just simply not get anything out of that one. So,
And that's the gap that we've been kind of talking about. If you're in that gap, I mean, you kind of dodged a bullet in a sense. Imagine what's happening right now around Columbus, Indy. If you shift that about 2 counties south, that means a lot of southern Indiana would have been get hit a lot harder. So this is definitely, you know, it's grace. Like we're getting lucky that we're not seeing these storms blow up all over the place. But
and,
like
you
you
know,
mentioned,
I guess it's a good and a bad, right? I mean,
yeah,
it means.
I don't know. In some senses, being wrong may not be a bad thing, especially when you just saw the video out of St. Louis. I mean, that was a sturdy church that was ripped to shreds. I mean, these storms, they're strong where they go, and where they don't, you don't have anything. And I can understand there's going to be frustration associated with that. But in a day like this, I'm actually happier to see fewer people getting these storms, although the ones that are getting them, they just happen to be more intense.
Yeah, so we've got near Harrisonville, there is at least some small rotation in the eastern part of Shelby County. I want to just give this maybe another minute or two before we go back to programming. It is not tornado warned right now. It is clearly what we call anvil to anvil, meaning that it is running up against storms in front of it. It is just much harder to generate tornadoes under that condition. So we'll keep an eye on it for just a couple more minutes, then we'll return back to programming. We've got strong storms that are now starting to develop in the southern part of our area near Magnolia. Those storms we're watching near Magnolia, this is in still a very, very volatile atmosphere with a lot of fuel and wind energy that is favorable for organized severe. This storm is not warned right now near Magnolia. It is possible. And then we've got the just beast mode storms that are west of us that are very, very likely to generate at least severe weather in our area. High-res data shows that Louisville may just be on the northern edge of that and maybe a little bit far north. I'll tell you this, I've been doing this I started in this business in 1999, so this year is my 26th year doing this. And knowing everything I know right now, would I have gone on TV with the exact same messaging? 100%. And I'll tell you why. I'll tell you what I've learned is when you have a high-end spatial environment that is very volatile, and this is a high-end spatial environment that's very volatile, I would rather you understand what the threats are. I would rather, even if they're more discrete like we're seeing,
Right.
I can't tell you 24 hours out where exactly those discrete cells are going to go. I can tell you that the volatility of the atmosphere is equal everywhere in our area right now. And I can tell you as we've gotten closer, we're at least able to determine now that those storms are going to probably split where there's that gap in between. But in the end of all of this, what my job is risk prevention. And I've got to let you guys know what the threats are. And the threat was a legitimate moderate risk. It was justified in the moderate risk, whether we underperform in what occurs within our viewing area. The region will show you that the moderate risk was necessary. It just may have come up a little bit short in our area, and I can live with that. And if you're mad, I get it. But again, we really still have to speak to the threats. I see Matthew motioning towards me.
So just to speak to, you talk about in our region, bad things happening. Bloomington, again, we were talking about the tornado up in that direction. We've got a picture of a blown up post office up there. If you guys
So the
could show
post
that.
office was damaged?
Oh yeah, destroyed. I mean, totally eviscerated. I'm looking at it back here on one of my other computers, and we may be able to get that on the screen any second now.
Well, that we can't get it off of unless it's in the weather system.
Okay. All right.
So you can just speak to it though, Matthew.
Oh, I mean, yeah, Rick, you're looking at it as well. I mean, the thing's just totally destroyed. And so outside of our area, and this is looking at Bardstown right now. You guys don't have to pull that one up, but again, totally destroyed. Just one county north of us, and we're zooming in on that right now, and we'll get that clear view for you. It's not pretty in here. Let me pull it up. I'll click into it.
Okay.
Look at that.
Okay, and this is from the National Weather Service chat, where we have that. Rick, let's just spend a moment here. The tornado warnings are expired for the area, and we have no more severe thunderstorm warnings. Let's just do a quick radar tour, and then we're going to end the cut here and go back to programming. Obviously, if what's near Tell City goes severe or goes tornado warned, we would cut back into programming. So as we stand right now, southern Indiana, it is very, very possible that you have seen the show for your area. In fact, I would argue you have. The storms have weakened right now near North Vernon. This area is going to miss. It's going to miss this secondary line that's coming through. The secondary line is going to be more intense south of 64. Will Louisville miss it? It's all going to depend on whether this intensifies. I would say it probably will not. And I would say that if you're going to get severe out of this line, I would say my most concerning area would be south of Tell City, through around Irvington, through around the Fort Knox area, through around Bardstown, and then through around Lebanon Junction. This will likely generate into a line that produces damaging to destructive winds. They will become more widespread in the southern part of our area. Strong thunderstorm right now continues near the Upton area, near Lebanon. This storm we're watching to see if it can get a little bit of a tail on it. Right now, it being so close to the storm near Bowling Green has precluded it from going severe. And then the Bowling Green supercell. This is a storm that formed in southern Illinois and has been ongoing for, I'm going to guess, around 3.5 hours. Tornado warning continues for the Bowling Green metro area. If you have friends or family, Bowling Green, Western, call, let them know. Be in your safe location. That is where we stand. We'll take it out to the wide perspective and let's put it into motion as we watch this next line of storms that will be coming through. Understand we're getting very strong winds even on the collapsing areas where it's just showers. In Bardstown and came through the E-Town area where we got a 50-mile-an-hour wind that moved through E-Town without thunder and lightning. Jeez. So it shows you what's up there. It shows you the energy that we have in the atmosphere. We're continuing to watch the storms. Tornado watch for the western half of our area until 11, eastern part of our area until 3 a.m. Keep it right here on WDRB. If we get any more tornado warnings for our area, we'll update you. Stay with WDRB for continuing weather updates. We've got a challenging forecast tonight as we've got a cold front moving into a highly unstable air mass, and we have a moderate risk of severe weather. So I'm going to update you based on the late data with the tornado watches posted, when to expect those storms where you live, and I'm analyzing the threats as they move across the area. Tonight at 10.
Long John Silver's $6 fish and chicken basket is the best of the land and the sea. Crispy, tender chicken meets perfectly golden fish in one tasty basket. It's a match made in hand-battered heaven. Skip the wait when you make our app your first meal. Long John Silver's Fish Yeah.
Wherever this lands, that's where we're going.
Okay. Ohio!
Ohio! What do you say we pack our things and get out of here? I've been saving all my life just to disappear. Can I hold you? Can I hold you to that? We could see the world.